The one thing that we learned well from the Iraq War, over a decade of blood and treasure expended in this country, occupying it, fighting this battle, you cannot defeat Sunni jihadism without Sunnis. And the only way that Sunnis begin to turn against Sunni jihadis is one of several. The jihadis become more barbaric than the colonial occupier. They themselves become colonial occupiers. Abu Musab al-Zarqawi, the founder of the Feast, guy who created al-Qaeda in Iraq, was a Jordanian. He brought in all these people from the Levant, Saudi Arabia, Yemen, Algeria. Iraqis began to feel like they were fighting two occupations, the American one and then this consortium of a Jihadi International. Number three, these guys end up monopolizing all of the gray, black, and white market economies by which the Sunni tribal regions of, as I said, Western Iraq and Eastern Syria have enriched themselves for centuries. All of these three things exist today. I mentioned Al-Bab. This is a town where the people in charge are not Syrians. People who've lived there their entire lives, grew up there, are being told what to do by 18-year-old Tunisians, or even more so by Iraqis that are brought in from Iraq. Because remember, this franchise, it began as a foreign-led franchise, but it became Iraqized over the last decade. And now it's being led essentially...
But what should we do? Should we admire this?
No, you don't have to admire it, Roger, but you have to understand it in order to defeat it. So, but what I'm saying is, what I'm pointing to is there is a fundamental vulnerability to ISIS.
I agree with that.
Which is that the people on the ground do not want to be lorded over by them, except they need an alternative.
Which is the same thing, which is exactly what happened in the awakening and the surge.
Well, part of what President Obama was trying to do...
Wait, one second, I'll be right back to you.
If you take, for example, the case of Mosul, what is cooking now there is the battle for Mosul, which will happen, I hope, in the next month. We will need for that, they will need an alliance between Kurds and Sunnis. And this is what is taking shape today. This is true. Now, there is an emergency. The emergency is the bloodbath in Paris, as you had in New York. You know, Charlie, I have my son, my beloved son, who is a lawyer, member, partner of a great American cabinet. He had his partner, one of his best friends, killed at the Bataclan on Friday night. The best friend of my son, member of a New York lawyer's cabinet. The emergency is to stop that, is to make that impossible. For this, we don't have to reflect, to make comparisons with Iraq, with Afghanistan. We together, Americans and France, have to act. And what Mr. Obama should understand, I think, with great humility I say that, no boots on the ground there means more blood on the ground here. This is the equation. I understand no boots on the ground, but it will mean more blood on our ground, in America and in France. The last thing I want to say, ISIS is not Hitler. Hitler was a huge power. In terms of ideas, of course, ISIS is a new sort of fascism. But in terms of military power, ISIS is a tiger, is a paper tiger. If we decided really to win this war, it will be much shorter than one believes. And I have the strange impression when I listen to some presidents of the world, you know the story of this one who did not want to be a king. I have the feeling today that some don't really want to win this war. This war against ISIS gives the strange impression to be a war which we don't really want to win. But we have to win in order to prevent others mass massacres, as we saw in Paris and in New York 14 years ago. We have to eradicate ISIS, and it will be much more doable and easy than we believe with our big strategist analysis.